All right, on to some other news. President Biden is going on a media blitz today as he looks to rebound from another round of damaging polls.
Yeah, but he doesn't believe the polls, remember? Those numbers show former President Trump leading in several key battleground states.
Lucas Tomlinson joins us live from Washington with the latest. Lucas, it does appear the president is in denial.
That's right. Good morning, guys. If you want poll numbers for breakfast, you came to the right place. Let's take a look at President Biden's support among black voters in the swing states. According to a new New York Times poll, Biden is seeing a 28-point drop compared to just 4 years ago. Former President Donald Trump seeing a 15-point bump. Now let's take a look at the Hispanic vote. Biden leads Trump by 3% in the swing states. Keep in mind, though, in 2020, Biden took 59% of the Hispanic vote. Now let's see the poll numbers when you bring in RFK Jr. You can see Biden's support has been cut in half since December, while Trump's has increased by nearly 10 points. RFK Jr. getting nearly 20% of the Hispanic vote. Now let's take a look at young voters. Donald Trump is leading in this category by 3 points with young voters. One Democratic pollster says, quote, "All of the data consistently shows that our campaign needs to do better with younger voters, with black voters, and with Hispanic voters. Perhaps an effort to woo those black and young voters, the vice president appeared on Sherry Shepherd's show."
I used to shop in California. I had a woman-owned business and buy candles, and I love the smell of gardenia and jasmine.
Gardenia is my favorite scent.
Okay, so when I became vice president, she created a scent for me, and that's what that is.
Who doesn't like the smell of jasmine? Now, yesterday, Biden, for the second time in a week, repeated the false claim about inflation, telling Yahoo Finance, "I think inflation has gone slightly up. It was at 9% when I came in, and now it's down around 3%. Of course, inflation was 1.4% when Biden took office. Inflation under Biden has had an average rate increase of 5.5%, second only to Jimmy Carter, who, of course, was not reelected, guys.
Right. I mean, it's unbelievable, Lucas, that he'll say something so dramatically wrong. That brings up two questions. Does he not know it?
Right.
Did anyone tell him how wrong he was? Or number three, does he say, what do I have to lose?
Well,
I'm just going to keep repeating it.
When you have people fact-checking it, then, of course, he continues to say it. But meanwhile, when the former president says anything or wants to have a campaign event, they have to fact-check every single thing that he says.
Lucas, let's set it straight. It was 1.4% when he took office. It was over 9%, 9.1% in June of 2022, a year and a half into his presidency.
And today, cheeseburgers cost $25, and you go to Five Guys. That's what people are feeling nationwide.
That's right. But it comes with a drink and also fries and a great big bag. Lucas, thank you very much. You know, the scary thing about this is what I worry about with Joe Biden continually saying, when I came in, inflation was 9%. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he forgot, which just goes into the whole dynamic of, you know, the president has lost a step. He's lost a bunch of steps, and that's why these pieces are coming out right now talking about how people inside the Biden bubble, they don't trust the polls, and the president doesn't trust the polls, but people in the larger Democratic world are like, come on, you got to change tacks because you're behind right now in a bunch of these reliable polls, and you are sleepwalking into a disaster.
So it makes you wonder why it makes you wonder what the president was going to say when he had his big economic speech at about 12 o'clock yesterday in the Rose Garden, at which time he came out and said, I know the problem. It's China, which is bizarre because we know that was Trump's thing, and everyone said you can't do that. It's the number one trading partner. But Trump was consistent. We're going to tariff them until they come aboard. And he started working on the first phase of the trade deal, and then the pandemic hit, and they poisoned the world and never were accountable for it. But this is so weird. This is Sybil Biden, because right now he is trying to amend relations with China. He has a meeting in San Francisco. They have meetings now on the defense minister to secretary of defense. They're having all these reapproachments. And then he comes out and says, I am going to put 100% tariff on all their goods in a desperate attempt to win over the automakers in Michigan, perhaps. I asked Speaker Johnson about his big speech today. He was in New York at the time, but he flew back to D.C., and here's what he said.
Everybody knows that Bidenomics has ruined the economy. Everybody knows that the cost of living is through the roof. China is a culprit in some of this as well, but the main culprit is the president and his policies. They have spent too much money. They have grown the size and scope of government, and they have regulated some of our industries almost to the point of extinction. That is what has destroyed the economy. That's why inflation is so high, and that's why the rising cost of living is a top concern for millions and millions of Americans. Brian, I've been in 102 cities now and over half the states over the last few months, doing large events and many events in all these places. No matter where we are, out west, the East Coast, North, South, Mid-South, doesn't matter. People have the same concerns. They're having a hard time getting by because of what Joe Biden and the Democrats have done to the economy, and I think there's going to be a reckoning for that in November.
So a couple things. I find it very interesting that the Biden administration, whether it is the economy and our relationship with China or it's the border, that suddenly that the president is having this big epiphany during an election year, and he wants to alter something.
He's acting like Trump.
Now, all of a sudden, he agrees with the Trump policy, or trying to act like it's his own. The second thing, when it comes to the fact check about the economy or Bidenomics working, I would be more concerned if the American people were buying it. But right now, poll after poll shows that not only are Republicans upset, independents upset, but even Democrats don't believe the president when he talks about Bidenomics work.
You know, and there's an interesting piece that just was posted on the Washington Post in the last hour, and it does talk about all the polls. And this is to your point, Lawrence. It talks about how Joe Biden is trailing in the swing states, but when you put Joe Biden up against a generic Democrat running for Senate, it's a different story, because Joe Biden is pretty close to being tied with Trump, with young and Hispanic voters, but a generic Democratic Senate candidate in each of those states leads by 19 with Hispanics and by 16 with young voters. And then generic Democrat leads by 59 points with black voters compared to Joe's 40%. So the generic Democrat is ahead by almost 20 points. So in other words, voters are not balking at at the Democrats. They're balking at Joe Biden. He's been president for over 3 years, and he has not delivered what he promised he would do, and people are PO'd.
Yeah, and when you look at the young voters in swing states, according to New York Times and Siena, Trump is ahead. He's getting 46%, and Biden's getting 43%. Look at the black voters. In 2020, Trump got 9%. Now he's getting 23%. That's almost a fourth of the black voters like Donald Trump. Although Axios is reporting that Joe Biden and his closest advisors don't believe in any of these polls.
Right. It's going to be interesting because it's still close in all these places, except for Georgia and Nevada. And he is making gains in these different categories, but it's still close in the overall state.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.